The receptionist treated him like a backpacker without knowing he was the millionaire owner of the hotel. Before we begin the story, let us know in the comments, what city are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Emma Rodriguez nearly spilled her coffee when she saw a man walk into the Grand Plaza Hotel lobby. He looked like a scarecrow. Messy hair, a big beard, a backpack that looked like it had survived 3 world wars, and dirty sneakers. "No, no, no," Emma muttered as she left the front desk and rushed toward the stranger. "Sir, excuse me, sir." The man turned around, revealing sun-kissed skin and surprisingly beautiful eyes. For a second, Emma hesitated. There was something in his eyes that didn't match the rest of his rough appearance. "Are you lost?" she asked, forcing a professional smile as she positioned herself between him and the guests having afternoon tea. "I can give you directions to the nearest hostel. It's only 6 blocks away." Michael Blackwood held back a laugh. 3 weeks hiking in the Colorado mountains had turned him into exactly that, a bearded wanderer with dirty clothes. And now, back at his own hotel, one of his employees was trying to send him away. "Actually," he said, adjusting the strap of his torn backpack, "I'd like a room." Emma blinked twice, sure she'd heard him wrong. "Eh? Room? Here?" She glanced nervously at the other guests. Mrs. Wellington, a New York socialite, was already making that disgusted face that meant she'd soon file a complaint. "Sir, this is the Grand Plaza. Our rooms start at $500 per night and go up from there." Michael nodded seriously. "I understand. The hostel on 47th takes daily payments," Emma whispered, lowering her voice. "And look." She reached into her purse and pulled out a wrinkled $5 bill. "Here. For a sandwich. You look really thin." Her unexpected kindness caught him off guard. Michael looked at the bill, probably her own lunch money, and something shifted in his chest. When was the last time someone cared if he was hungry? Not the billionaire CEO, but just him. "That's very kind," he said, genuinely touched. "But I really do need a room. I have a credit card." Emma let out a dramatic sigh. "Backpackers always cause trouble," she muttered, glancing around. "All right, but if there's any problem—" She made the universal "you're out" hand gesture. "Promise, no trouble." As they walked back to the front desk, Emma subtly signaled Tony, the security guard, to keep an eye on him. The man was too polite to be just a typical drifter, but still, better safe than sorry. "Name?" she asked, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Michael Blackwood." Emma typed without looking up. "ID and credit card, please." Michael handed her a dusty driver's license. "What type of room would you like, sir?" "What do you have available?" Emma checked the system. "We have a very nice standard room," she said, selecting the cheapest option. $250 per night. "Actually," Michael said, a hint of amusement in his voice, "how about the presidential suite?" Emma stopped typing. "The presidential suite? If it's available." "Sir, the presidential suite is $3,000 per night." "That's fine." Emma stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Was he serious? She double-checked the system. The suite was available, but "I'll need to run your payment first," she said slowly, "for verification." Michael handed her a matte black credit card. Emma held it under the light, checking for signs of fraud, then ran it through the machine. She held her breath, fully expecting it to be declined. "Approved." She looked at the screen, then at Michael, then back at the screen. That went through," she murmured in disbelief. "Great. But—" Emma lowered her voice. "Sir, are you sure this card isn't stolen? We've had that happen with people in tough situations." Michael nearly laughed. "I'm pretty sure it's legit." Emma still wasn't convinced. Discreetly, she picked up the front desk phone and dialed the bank. "Hello? This is Emma Rodriguez from the Grand Plaza Hotel. I need to verify a transaction." She whispered the card numbers, keeping an eye on Michael. "Yes, I'll hold." Michael pretended to look at a tourist brochure while she waited. Judging by the look on her face, he could guess what the other side of the line was saying. "Mr. Blackwood?" "Yes, VIP client." "Credit limit? Let's just say there isn't one, ma'am." "I see," Emma said into the phone, her voice rising an octave. "Yes, thank you." She hung up and stared at Michael with a strange expression. "Everything went through?" he asked innocently. "Yes, it did. But I still need you to sign a few documents, just to confirm your signature." Emma had Michael sign the registration form, then a second form, then a third. With each signature, she carefully compared it to his ID, frowning like a seasoned detective. "One more thing," she said, pulling out her phone. "I need a photo for our security records. Standard procedure for special guests." Michael patiently posed while Emma took 3 photos, each with the flash on. "All set," she finally said, handing him the key card. "The suite is on the top floor, the elevator." "Emma?" a man's voice interrupted. "Is everything all right?" Emma turned to see Richard Morgan, the general manager, walking over with a professional smile. "No problem at all, Mr. Morgan. Just checking in, Mr." She glanced at Michael. Blackwood. Richard's reaction was immediate. His eyes widened, and his smile shifted from polite to genuinely respectful. "Mr. Blackwood," he exclaimed, reaching out to shake hands. "It's a pleasure to have you back. How was your trip?" Emma looked on, confused, as Richard greeted Michael like someone important. "It was eye-opening," Michael replied, shaking the manager's hand. "Very different from what I'm used to." "I can imagine," Richard laughed. "If there's anything you need." "Actually," Emma cut in, lowering her voice. "Mr. Morgan, may I speak to you for a moment, privately?" Richard looked surprised but nodded. Emma pulled him a few steps away and whispered urgently, "Be careful. He might be a very skilled scammer. The card went through, but—" She motioned toward Michael. "Look at him. Something feels off." Richard followed her gaze. Michael was calmly admiring a flower arrangement, his worn-out backpack at his feet, totally unaware of the conversation. "Emma," Richard said slowly, "do you know who that man is? A washed-up heir? Someone who won the lottery?" Emma shrugged. He didn't want to give many details. Richard opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "He won the lottery?" Across the lobby, Michael had caught parts of the conversation. "Won the lottery?" He smiled to himself. Why not? It was a lot easier than explaining the billions in inheritance and investments. "Yes," he said, walking back over. "The lottery. Still getting used to all of this." He gestured vaguely toward the fancy lobby. Emma nodded, satisfied her theory was correct. It made sense. A lottery winner, still new to wealth, not yet used to dressing for upscale places. "Well," Richard said, still processing everything, "congratulations on the winnings. If you need any advice about investing or—" "Actually," Emma interrupted, feeling suddenly responsible. "I've already given him a few basic tips, things people with sudden wealth should know." Michael bit his lip to hold back a laugh. "Emma's been very helpful?" "I'm sure," Richard muttered, glancing between them like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Well, Mr. Blackwood," Emma said, returning to her professional tone, "your suite is ready. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10. Room service is available 24 hours a day, and—" She hesitated. "If you need help with anything, I'm always here." The sincerity in her voice touched him again. "Thank you, Emma. Really." As Michael walked toward the elevators, backpack slung over his shoulder and moving far too casually for someone headed to the most expensive suite in the hotel, Emma turned to Richard. "Keep an eye out," she whispered. "New lottery winners are easy targets for scammers." Richard slowly nodded, still trying to come to terms with the fact that one of the wealthiest men in the country had just been mistaken for a homeless person by his own employee. "I'll keep my eyes open," he promised. As the elevator doors closed, Michael finally let the smile escape. 3 weeks in the mountains had given him a new perspective on his golden life, but Emma had just given him something even more valuable: the experience of being treated like a regular person. The next morning, Emma arrived at work with a mission. She had spent the entire night feeling guilty for judging Michael so harshly. The man had won the lottery, a life-changing event that should be celebrated, and she had treated him like a potential criminal. Even worse, he clearly had no idea how to behave in a high-end setting. She felt it was her moral duty to help him adjust to the world of the wealthy before he made some kind of embarrassing mistake. Emma opened a notepad and began writing quickly. "Survival Guide for Newly Rich," she scribbled at the top of the page, then crossed it out and wrote, "Basic Guide, How Not to Look Poor in Fancy Places." The list grew fast. Never wear flip-flops in the lobby or any public area. Don't ask for discounts at the front desk, even if the prices seem too high. Don't put food from breakfast in your pockets, no matter how tempting. Always greet the staff politely, but don't get too personal. Use utensils for everything, even pizza if needed. Don't take pictures of your food. That screams, first time here. Never ask how much things cost at the restaurant. Use the restroom to wash your hands, not for a full-body cleanup. Don't talk about prices with other guests. Dress properly. No torn shorts at dinner. Emma read over the list with satisfaction. It was complete, practical, and most importantly, it would save Michael from future embarrassment. When Michael walked into the lobby at 10 in the morning, still wearing the same worn-out jeans, but at least freshly showered, Emma stopped him right away. "Mr. Blackwood, perfect timing." She waved the paper in front of him. "I've prepared something that'll really help you." Michael read the title and almost choked. "Guide on how not to look poor?" "Exactly," Emma beamed with pride. "Basic rules to help you adjust to your new financial situation. Trust me, this will help you avoid awkward moments." Michael scanned the list, trying not to laugh. "Use utensils for pizza. Don't photograph food." Was she serious? "This is very thorough," he said. 2 years of experience dealing with all kinds of hotel guests," Emma said confidently. "I can spot a newly rich person from a mile away. No offense." "None taken," Michael mumbled, still wrapping his head around getting etiquette advice from a 26-year-old employee. "Let's start with the basics," Emma said. "Rule number 1, never wear flip-flops in the lobby." Michael looked down at his worn sneakers. "What if I don't have the right shoes?" "Uh-huh." Emma pulled a card from her purse. "My friend Patricia works at a shoe store 3 blocks from here. Tell her I sent you and she'll give you the staff discount." The irony was perfect. One of the richest men in the world being told how to save money on shoes. "Thank you," Michael said seriously. "That's very helpful." "You're welcome. Now, rule number 5, use utensils for everything, even pizza." "For pizza?" Michael pretended to be shocked. "But pizza's meant to be eaten with your hands." Emma shook her head firmly. "Not in places like this. Rich folks eat pizza with a fork and knife, always. Even pepperoni pizza? Especially pepperoni pizza. The more casual the food, the more formal the way to eat it should be." Michael nodded seriously, like he was learning ancient wisdom. "Got it. Fork and knife for pizza. Noted." "Great, let's practice." Emma led him into the hotel restaurant where lunch was being served. A few tables were taken by business people in meetings, tourists planning their day, and a group of socialites gossiping about others. "Table for 2, Emma said to the maitre, who instantly recognized Michael but stayed professional. "Of course, Miss Rodriguez. Table 23 has a great view." Once seated, Emma took her role as instructor seriously. "Remember, sit up straight, don't put your elbows on the table, and..." She paused dramatically. "We're ordering pizza to practice rule number 5. Michael almost laughed out loud. "Pizza for lunch?" "Trust me, it's the ultimate test." The waiter, Robert, who had worked at the hotel for 15 years and knew Michael since he took over the company, was slightly surprised to see the boss with Emma, but remained polite. "Good afternoon. What can I get you today?" "1 margarita pizza," Emma said with confidence, "and 2 sparkling waters." "Excellent choice," Robert replied, carefully avoiding Michael's eyes. As they waited, Emma continued the lesson. Rule number 6, don't take photos of your food. That screams first time in a fancy place. "What if I want to show my friends?" Resist the urge. Rich folks don't take food pictures, they just eat. The pizza arrived in 15 minutes, served on an elegant plate with linen napkins. Michael looked at the utensils beside the plate like they were surgical tools. "Now show me," Emma said, arms crossed. Michael picked up the fork and knife with exaggerated care. He cut a tiny piece of pizza, chewed slowly and swallowed with a thoughtful look. "How is it?" Emma asked. "Very refined," Michael replied. At the table next to them, a middle-aged couple watched the scene with fascination. The woman whispered something to her husband, who shook his head in disbelief. Michael kept eating his pizza with a knife and fork, each movement careful and proper. He cut the slices into perfect little shapes, chewed with his mouth closed, and dabbed his lips with the napkin after every bite. "Perfect," Emma whispered, glowing with pride. "You're learning fast." Across the restaurant, 3 businessmen stopped talking to watch what was happening. One of them discreetly took out his phone, as if he were documenting a rare species of human behavior. "Can I ask you something?" Michael said, cutting another tiny piece. "Of course. Why are you helping me? Yesterday, you thought I was a criminal." Emma blushed a little. Because I judged you by your appearance, and that was wrong. My grandma always said, it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going. You won the lottery. That's amazing. You deserve every chance to fit in properly. The sincerity in her voice touched Michael deeply. Here was someone truly concerned for his well-being, not knowing he already had more chances to fit in than he could ever use in one lifetime. Your grandmother sounds wise, he said. She was. She cleaned houses for wealthy families and always told me that the real difference between social classes isn't money, it's knowledge. Knowing how to behave, what to wear, how to talk. Emma gestured expressively. That's why I'm sharing what I know with you. Michael stopped eating, truly moved. Emma, that means a lot to me. You're welcome. It's the least I can do. They finished lunch with Michael showing excellent mastery of the knife and fork pizza technique. When they left the restaurant, Emma was practically floating with satisfaction. Lesson 1, complete, she announced. Tomorrow, we'll move on to rule number 7, never ask about prices at a restaurant. Can't wait, Michael said, and for the first time in years, he actually meant it. As Emma went back to work, glowing from having saved a new rich guy from future embarrassment, Michael headed up to his suite smiling. 3 weeks in the mountains had taught him about simplicity, but Emma was teaching him something even more valuable. Sometimes the most generous people are the ones with the least to give, and eating pizza with a knife and fork, even if it seemed silly, could be surprisingly fun with the right person. Today's the big day, Emma announced on day 3 of Operation Civilize Michael, walking into the lobby with a notepad and a determined expression that would have made a general proud. Advanced etiquette training in a real-world setting. Michael, who had woken up thinking about business mergers and quarterly reports, was instantly pulled back into the alternate reality where he was a lottery winner in desperate need of social training. Real-world setting? He asked, amused. Le Bernardin, Emma said with reverence, as if naming a sacred pilgrimage site. 3 Michelin stars. If you can get through dinner there without embarrassing yourself, you'll officially graduate from How to Be Rich 101. Michael nearly choked. Le Bernardin was one of his favorite restaurants. He dined there at least once a month and knew the chef, Daniel Boulud, personally. But Emma didn't need to know that. Sounds intimidating, he said, pretending to be nervous. That's why I brought study materials. Emma opened her notepad, revealing diagrams that looked like architectural blueprints. Complete map of proper cutlery setup in a fine dining restaurant. The map was a work of art in itself. Emma had drawn plates, glasses, napkins, and silverware with obsessive precision. Every item was numbered and connected by arrows to tiny handwritten notes. Salad fork, main fork, dessert fork, she recited like a sacred chant. Left to right, always left to right. Knives on the right, then spoons after the knives. Never, ever use the wrong fork for the wrong course. And if I forget, Michael asked with a genuinely worried face. Then you become a meme on someone else's Instagram, Emma said seriously. I've seen it happen. A man once used a fish fork for steak and went viral under the hashtag #NewRichFail. Michael made a mental note to check if that hashtag was real. 2 hours later, they were sitting at Le Bernardin. Emma was glowing with pride for getting a last-minute table. She didn't know Michael had personally called the manager. The restaurant was in full evening swing. Soft lighting, quiet conversations, and an atmosphere of sophistication that cost about $500 per person. Remember, Emma whispered, pretending to study the menu while watching Michael out of the corner of her eye. Sit up straight, napkin on your lap, and for heaven's sake, don't blow on the soup. People blow on soup? Michael asked innocently. Regular folks do. Rich people wait for it to cool naturally. The sommelier approached. Francois, who had known Michael for 5 years and always reserved his best wines for him. Francois looked at Michael, then at Emma, then back at Michael, clearly confused but maintaining flawless professionalism. Good evening, Francois said in a thick French accent. May I suggest a wine to go with your dinner? Emma spoke up. Nothing too expensive, she said, glancing meaningfully at Michael. Something democratic. Francois blinked slowly. In 5 years of serving Michael Blackwood, he had never heard anyone ask for a democratic wine for the man who once ordered a $1,500 bottle of Chateau d'Yquem just because he felt like something sweet. Maybe. A simple Bordeaux? Francois offered carefully. Perfect, Emma exclaimed. See, she whispered to Michael. Always show that you're in control of your spending. Rich people don't need to prove anything by buying the most expensive wine. Michael nodded seriously, mentally noting this revolutionary financial philosophy. The first course arrived, an edible work of art that looked like it had been sculpted by angels. Emma immediately switched into teacher mode. Now watch, she said, picking up the outermost fork. You always start with the utensils on the outside and work your way in. It's like unwrapping a present, layer by layer. Michael followed her instructions with exaggerated focus, cutting tiny bites and chewing as if he were solving a complex math problem. Excellent technique, Emma whispered, proud as a mother watching her child take their first steps. It was during the second course that disaster struck. Michael was cutting his fish with surgical precision when he accidentally bumped his elbow into the wine glass. The red liquid spread across the table like a crime scene, staining his white shirt and creating a moment of complete silence in the restaurant. "Oh no!" Emma exclaimed, jumping up. "Your shirt." "It's nothing," Michael said, but Emma was already in full emergency mode. "Come on, let's go to the restroom. We have to rinse this before it sets." She practically dragged Michael through the restaurant, passing tables where other guests watched the commotion with thinly veiled interest. Emma was so focused on the wine stain, she didn't notice how all the waiters gave slight bows as Michael walked by. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood," murmured Robert, the head waiter. "Everything all right, Mr. Blackwood?" asked Marie, the assistant sommelier. "Need any help, Mr. Blackwood?" offered Jean-Claude, the maitre d'. Emma, busy reviewing stain removal strategies, took the greetings as a case of mistaken identity. "He's not Mr. Blackwood," she corrected automatically. "He's Mr. Michael, the lottery winner." The staff exchanged puzzled looks, but kept their professional smiles. In the men's room, Emma insisted on walking him to the door. She gave Michael instructions on how to handle wine stains. "Cold water, always cold water. Hot water sets the stain," she shouted through the door. "Got it," Michael replied, secretly impressed with Emma's domestic knowledge. When they returned to the table, the restaurant manager, Philippe Moreau, was waiting with a concerned expression. "Mr. Blackwood," Philippe said, completely ignoring Emma's presence, "I'm terribly sorry about the incident. May I offer you a fresh shirt? We have a few designer pieces in our VIP wardrobe." Emma looked at Philippe, then at Michael, then back at Philippe. "Excuse me," she interrupted, "but you've got my friend confused with someone else. This is Michael, not Mr. Blackwood." Philippe looked genuinely puzzled. "But madam, this is definitely—" "Understandable mistake," Michael cut in quickly, giving Philippe a look that clearly said, "Don't blow the cover. It happens more often than you'd think." After 15 years in fine dining, Philippe had learned that the whims of ultra-wealthy clients were often impossible to explain. If Michael Blackwood wanted to pretend he wasn't Michael Blackwood, who was he to argue? "Of course," Philippe said slowly. "My mistake. Mr. Michael, may I still offer the new shirt?" "That won't be necessary," Emma said firmly. "We managed with cold water and basic home cleaning techniques." After Philippe left, clearly confused but maintaining professional dignity, Emma turned to Michael with a satisfied look. "See, that's exactly the kind of embarrassing situation we're trying to avoid. Waiters in fancy places can be very presumptuous. They assume any well-dressed customer is some kind of celebrity." "Very insightful," Michael agreed. "Now, where were we? Oh yes, fish cutting technique. The secret is a 45-degree angle." The rest of the dinner went on, with Michael receiving subtle greetings from all the staff, while Emma continued her mission to teach him, completely unaware that she was giving etiquette lessons to a man who probably dined at places like that more times in a month than she had in her entire life. When they finally left, Emma was beaming. "Mission accomplished," she announced. "You behaved like a true gentleman. Well, except for the wine incident, but that could happen to anyone." "Thanks for your patience," Michael said sincerely. "You're welcome." As they walked down the street, Emma chatted away about plans for the next phase of Michael's transformation. He couldn't stop smiling. It had been years since he'd had so much fun, and it was all thanks to a determined receptionist who had decided to save him from himself. The fact that she was saving him from problems he'd solved decades ago only made it more entertaining. "We need to talk about your wardrobe," Emma declared the next morning, showing up in the lobby with the determination of a general planning the Normandy invasion. "You can't keep looking like you just walked out of a wildlife documentary." Michael looked down at his clothes, faded jeans, a cotton t-shirt, and the same worn-out sneakers that had caused such a stir 3 days ago. To be fair, Emma had a point. "Do you have a suggestion?" he asked, pretending to be helpless. "Suggestion?" Emma laughed as if he had asked if she had plans to colonize Mars. "Michael, I have a master plan. We're going to turn you from backpacker to millionaire in one afternoon." She pulled a list from her pocket, because of course there was a list. Emma Rodriguez didn't do anything without proper documentation. "First stop, Macy's. Second floor, men's section. We'll get as many clothes as possible for the lowest price using advanced bargaining tactics I learned from watching reality shows about couponers." Michael blinked slowly. "Advanced bargaining tactics? From reality shows?" "Extreme couponing and bargain hunters," Emma said proudly. "I watched all the seasons, twice. You'll be amazed by my skills." 40 minutes later, they were at Macy's, with Emma marching through the aisles like a military commander inspecting troops. Michael followed her, fascinated by how seriously she approached the mission of buying clothes. "First," she said, stopping dramatically in front of a suit section, "we need to establish your new visual identity. You want to look new money, but not new money who doesn't know how to spend it." "There's a difference?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. "Oh, there's a huge difference," Emma replied, picking out a navy blue suit. "New money who knows how to spend buys quiet quality. New money who doesn't know how to spend buys loud, flashy stuff that screams, 'Look at me, I have money.'" A salesman approached. Stephen, a middle-aged man with a perfectly trimmed mustache and a professionally friendly smile. "Can I help you?" Stephen asked. "Yes," Emma exclaimed, taking full control of the situation. "My friend here needs a full wardrobe, suit, shirts, ties, shoes, everything, but we want fair prices." Stephen looked at Michael, then at Emma, trying to make sense of the unusual dynamic between them. "Of course, I can show you some options," Stephen began. "Wait," Emma interrupted, raising her hand like a traffic officer. "Before we see anything, I need to know, do you offer discounts for bulk purchases?" "Well, we do have a few promotions." "What kind of promotions? Specific percentages? Free items? Let's talk actual numbers." Michael watched, captivated, as Emma questioned poor Stephen like he was a suspect in a police investigation. She had pulled out a notepad and was literally taking notes on the store's discount policies. "If we buy 3 shirts, do we get a discount on the 4th?" Emma asked. "We have a buy 2, get 3 deal." "And ties? What's the deal with ties?" "Emma," Michael tried to gently interrupt, "maybe we could just look at the clothes." "Shh," Emma motioned for him to be quiet. "This is the most important part. Never start negotiating after you fall in love with the product. Always set the terms first." Stephen looked at Michael with an expression that clearly said, "First time shopping with her, huh?" "Let's start with suits," Emma finally announced. "Show us 3 options in the mid-price range, and I want to see the price tags before he tries anything on." Stephen led them through the section, showing suits ranging from $400 to $800. Emma examined each tag like it was a legal document, taking notes and murmuring numbers to herself. "This one," she said, pointing at a $600 Hugo Boss suit. "What's your best offer?" "Well, the price is $600. $600 is the tourist price," Emma said with a confidence she definitely hadn't earned. "What's the price for serious customers buying multiple items?" Stephen looked around nervously, as if he were about to share military secrets. "I can check with my manager about maybe 5%. 5%? Emma acted shocked. Stephen, you're dealing with a customer who's about to spend thousands today. Thousands. 5% is what you give someone buying socks." Michael was trying so hard not to laugh that his shoulders were shaking. Emma had turned into a ruthless negotiator, using bargaining tactics that probably worked better at flea markets than in department stores. "Let me speak with the manager," Stephen sighed, clearly out of his depth. As Stephen walked away, Emma turned to Michael with a triumphant look. "See? You have to show that you're not desperate. Salespeople can sense desperation from a mile away." "You're impressive," Michael said sincerely. Stephen returned with an older, stern-looking man, probably the manager. "I understand you're looking to make a substantial purchase," the manager said with professional calm. "Exactly." Emma clapped her hands. "My friend here needs a full transformation. Flexible budget, but we want real value for our money. I can offer 10% off your total if you spend over $1,000. Emma pretended to consider the offer as if it were an international peace treaty. 15%, she countered, and free alterations. 12% with free alterations. Deal. Emma reached out her hand dramatically. 2 hours later, Michael stood in front of the fitting room mirror, wearing the Hugo Boss suit, a crisp white shirt, and a blue silk tie. The transformation was remarkable. From scruffy traveler to polished executive in a matter of minutes. "Oh my goodness," Emma exclaimed as he stepped out. "Michael, you look like a CEO." "Because I am one," Michael thought, but out loud he said, "You think so?" "Think so? I'm sure." "Stephen, we'll take it all. The suit, 3 shirts, 2 ties, and those black Oxford shoes." Stephen started calculating the total. "We're at $2,040 before the discount." "And with our negotiated discount?" Emma asked eagerly. $1,836. Emma turned to Michael with a smile bright enough to light up Times Square. "We saved over $200. $200, Michael." "Impressive," Michael agreed, pulling out his credit card. "But wait," Emma said, grabbing his arm. "Let me try one more thing." She turned to Stephen. "That $200 tie my friend was looking at. What's the best price you can do?" Stephen looked at the Hermes tie Michael had casually mentioned. "Well, the general discount already applies." "Come on, Stephen, a $200 tie for a purchase close to $2,000? You can do better than that." After another 10 minutes of intense bargaining, Emma got the price down to $150. "Victory!" she cried, doing a small victory dance in the middle of the store. $50 off a tie. I'm a bargain genius. Michael paid the bill, smiling as Emma proudly shared her negotiation tactics with every employee who would listen. "The trick," she explained to a passing cosmetic saleswoman, "is never accept the first price. Never. There's always room to negotiate if you know how to push." As they left the store, Emma carrying several shopping bags like war trophies, Michael quietly excused himself to use the restroom. In reality, he went back to Stephen. "The difference my friend negotiated," Michael said quietly, handing over $300 in cash. "You can keep it as a tip. She worked hard and deserves to feel like she got a real win." Stephen looked at the money, then back at Michael. "Sir, this is very generous." "And Stephen?" Michael smiled. "If she ever comes back here, make sure she always gets the discounts she asks for. She's got a good heart." When Michael rejoined Emma on the sidewalk, she was still glowing with victory. "Michael, do you realize what we just did? We turned you into a refined man and saved a fortune. I should seriously think about becoming a personal shopper." "You really should," Michael agreed, watching as Emma arranged the shopping bags with a kind of proud, motherly care. As they walked back to the hotel, Emma excitedly planning the next phase of Michael's makeover. He thought about how strange and wonderful it was to see someone get so happy about saving $50 on a tie that cost less than what he usually tipped waiters. Emma Rodriguez was teaching him the real value of money, one lesson at a time, and he was enjoying every minute of it. The next day, Emma showed up in the lobby carrying a picnic basket that looked like it had been packed by an Italian grandmother worried about underfed grandchildren. "Surprise!" she announced, swinging the basket like she'd just won the lottery. "Today we're doing something different. No etiquette lessons or shopping, just good old-fashioned fun in Central Park." Michael looked at the overflowing basket. "How many people are you planning to feed?" "Just us, but..." Emma blushed a little. "Maybe I went overboard. I cook when I get nervous, and last night I was very nervous." "Nervous about what?" "About today." Emma waved her arms dramatically. "I've never had a picnic with a, lottery winner. What if you're used to caviar and champagne? What if peanut butter sandwiches are offensive to your newly refined taste? Michael held back a laugh. Emma, I grew up on peanut butter sandwiches. They're my favorite. Emma's face lit up. Really? Oh, thank goodness, because I made 12 different kinds. Peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and banana, peanut butter and honey. 12 kinds? Michael interrupted, impressed. And I brought chips, homemade cookies, apple juice, and… Emma opened the basket to reveal a feast big enough for a small army. Maybe a few brownies. 40 minutes later, they were sitting on a checkered blanket in Central Park, surrounded by enough food to feed a festival. Emma had picked a spot under a tree with a view of the lake, where families were picnicking and couples were out on dates. Perfect, Emma declared, lining up the sandwiches like little soldiers. Nature, fresh air, and homemade food. This will help keep you grounded after your life change. Michael took a bite of a peanut butter and banana sandwich, savoring not just the nostalgic flavor, but also the irony of it all. When was the last time he'd eaten in a public park? Probably in college, over a decade ago. Tell me about your dreams, Michael said, genuinely curious. You mentioned you want to write. Emma's eyes lit up. Well, I've always wanted to write stories about ordinary people in extraordinary situations. Like, she waved half a sandwich, like a receptionist who finds out her neighbor is actually a retired secret agent, or a librarian who wins the lottery and travels the world hunting for rare books. Those stories sound fascinating, Michael said sincerely. They're just dreams, Emma shrugged, but Michael saw the spark of passion in her eyes. My real dream is to open a bookstore cafe in Brooklyn, a cozy place where people can come to read, write, talk about books. It'd be like a giant living room for book lovers. Why don't you do it? Emma laughed, but there was a trace of sadness in her voice. With what money? Do you have any idea how much it costs to open a business in New York? Between rent, inventory, permits, decor, we're talking at least $200,000. For me, it's like trying to buy the moon. Michael chewed thoughtfully. $200,000. For him, that was less than the price of his watch. But for Emma, it meant a lifetime of impossible saving. What about you? Emma asked. What are you planning to do with your lottery winnings? Any wild dream you've always wanted to make real? Before Michael could answer, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. It was David Chen, his chief financial officer, probably about the Blackwood Industries merger with the German hotel chain he'd been negotiating for months. Sorry, he said to Emma. I need to take this. It's important. Mr. Blackwood, David said without any introduction when Michael picked up, we have a situation with the Muller merger. They're demanding to renegotiate the acquisition terms and… Wait, David, Michael quickly interrupted, noticing Emma was listening. Can you make it simpler? Simpler? Sir, we're talking about $2.3 billion in… Simpler, Michael repeated firmly, giving Emma a meaningful look. There was a confused pause on the other end. And, sir, are you okay? I'm fine. Just simplify the situation so I can understand better. After 15 years working for Michael, David had learned to read his boss's odd signals. Oh, you're undercover? Exactly. I see. Well, sir, let's say the big promotion you were waiting for at work is getting complicated by some company regulation changes. Michael almost laughed at David's attempt to turn a huge corporate merger into ordinary office language. And what do you suggest? Maybe it's better if we discuss this in person, at your home, later? Perfect idea, thanks. Michael hung up and turned to Emma, who was looking at him with a strange expression. Work? She asked. Yeah, Michael said, trying to sound casual. McDonald's can get pretty complicated sometimes. Emma blinked. McDonald's has company mergers? Michael immediately noticed his mistake. Well, not mergers, shift mergers, when they combine the morning shift with the afternoon one to save costs. Oh, Emma nodded, impressed. Wow, even McDonald's is modernizing. Meetings about rules, shift mergers. You must be like a senior manager. Something like that, Michael muttered, making a mental note never to take work calls near Emma again. What language were you speaking at the end? Emma asked, curious. It sounded like German. Michael froze. He had automatically said see you later in German to David, a habit from negotiating with German companies. That was German, he admitted. You speak German? Emma's eyes widened. How amazing. Where did you learn it? Movies, Michael said quickly. I watch a lot of German movies. What kind of movies? Documentaries. About hamburgers. McDonald's is a global company, so… Michael was desperately making it up. It helps to know other languages. Emma nodded, clearly impressed. Such professional dedication, learning German to work better at McDonald's. Michael's phone rang again. This time it was Maria Santos, director of the South American division. Hello, Miguel. Maria said cheerfully. We need to discuss the São Paulo contracts. Maria, Michael interrupted in fluent Spanish. I'm in an informal meeting. Can we talk later? Informal meeting? You? Are you sick? Very funny. I'll call you in an hour. Okay, but the Brazilians are pushing for an answer about… 1 hour, Maria. I promise. Michael hung up and found Emma staring at him with her mouth open. That was Spanish now, she said slowly. It was. You speak Spanish and German? And French? Michael admitted, realizing he was already too deep to stop now. French too? Emma almost shouted, making a nearby family look their way. Michael, how many languages do you speak? Just 5, maybe 6 if you count basic Italian. Emma stared at him like he'd just confessed to being an alien. 5 languages? To work at McDonald's? Well, Michael searched desperately for a believable excuse. I watch a lot of movies and series. Netflix has a great international selection. You learned 5 languages watching Netflix? And YouTube, Michael added, hoping it made the story more believable. There are lots of educational channels and apps like Duolingo. Emma kept looking at him like she was trying to decode a secret message. Michael, that's amazing. You must have a very high IQ. Just dedication, Michael said modestly. Dedication? Emma laughed, but it was a laugh full of admiration. Michael, you're a polyglot lottery winner working at McDonald's who learned languages watching movies. You should write a book about your life. The phone rang a third time. This time it was the French office number. No, Michael said out loud, hanging up without answering. No more work today. But what if it's important? Emma asked. Nothing is more important than peanut butter sandwiches with a friend, Michael said sincerely. Emma smiled, a smile that lit up her whole face. You know how to say the right things. They spent the rest of the afternoon eating, talking, and laughing. Emma shared stories about strange hotel guests. Michael made up fake adventures about life at McDonald's, and both carefully avoided topics that might reveal more than they wanted. When the sun began to set, Emma packed up the picnic leftovers with military-like efficiency. Best day in weeks, she declared. Thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for inviting me, Michael replied. It's been a while since I relaxed like this. As they walked back through the park, Emma suddenly stopped. Michael? Yes? Promise me that if fame goes to your head, you won't forget normal people like me? Michael looked at her. This kind woman who had shared her dreams, her homemade food, and her friendship with no expectations. Emma, he said seriously, I promise people like you are exactly the ones I'll never forget. And for the first time in days of well-meaning lies, Michael Blackwood had told the absolute truth. Emma stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment in Queens while her mind processed the strange events of the last few days. Michael knew 5 languages. He got calls about company mergers at McDonald's. All the fancy restaurant staff greeted him like he was someone important. Something wasn't adding up. The next morning, Emma arrived at work with a mission. Find out who Michael Blackwood really was. She had watched enough episodes of CSI to know that every serious investigation started with quietly watching the suspect. The problem was, Emma Rodriguez had about as much spying skill as an elephant trying to hide behind a pole. I need a disguise, she muttered to herself, digging through the lost and found drawer behind the front desk. Something to make me invisible. 5 minutes later, Emma emerged transformed into a bizarre version of a private detective. Huge dark sunglasses covering half her face, a bright pink sun hat a guest had forgotten, and a copy of the New York Times that she had poked holes in to create observation windows. The final look was more like someone escaping from a mental hospital than a professional spy. Perfect, whispered Emma, positioning herself behind a marble column in the lobby. Now I just have to wait for the target to show up. What Emma didn't know was that the moment she put on those ridiculous glasses, Tony, the head of security, had alerted his whole team. Everyone, Tony said over the radio, Emma's having some kind of episode. She's wearing a strange disguise and hiding behind column 3. Keep your distance, but keep an eye on her. Tony, replied Marcus. Another guard. She has a newspaper with holes. I know, Marcus. I know. At 10 a.m., Michael appeared in the lobby, wearing one of the new shirts Emma had helped him buy. He casually headed for the elevator, unaware he was being discreetly followed by a woman wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a newspaper like a shield. Emma sneaked after him, trying to match her steps to the lobby's background music. Unfortunately, the music was a slow waltz, and Emma was moving like she was in an action movie chase scene. Suspect heading to the elevator, she whispered to herself, pretending to read the newspaper. Way too confident for a new lottery winner. What Emma also didn't notice was that Marcus and Steve, 2 security guards, were now following her, keeping a respectful distance while trying to figure out what on earth she was doing. She's talking to herself, Steve reported over the radio. Noted, Tony replied. Keep watching. Michael got on the elevator, and Emma rushed toward the stairs, determined to reach Michael's floor before him. She climbed 2 flights in high heels, arriving out of breath on the 3rd floor just as the elevator doors opened. "Ah!" she whispered triumphantly, quickly raising the holy newspaper to hide behind. Michael stepped out of the elevator and walked down the hall toward the presidential suite. Emma followed at what she considered a professional distance, but which actually made her obvious to anyone with working eyes. Suspect entering the presidential suite, Emma muttered, making mental notes. Way too comfortable for someone who should be impressed by luxury. Behind her, Marcus and Steve had come up the stairs, both trying to understand why the hotel's most normal receptionist had turned into a cartoon version of a secret agent. Emma decided she needed a better vantage point. She positioned herself behind an abandoned housekeeping cart in the hallway, her sunglasses reflecting the ceiling lights like spotlights. Base, this is Agent Emma, she whispered dramatically to herself. Target in position, waiting for further developments. 15 minutes later, the suite door opened and Michael came out, now wearing a perfectly tailored suit. Emma nearly dropped her newspaper. Where was the awkward lottery winner who needed help picking out ties? Complete change in appearance, she murmured, very suspicious. Michael headed back toward the elevator and Emma resumed her pursuit. This time, she decided to improve her spy technique by borrowing a room service cart to blend in. The result was Emma pushing a cart full of clean towels down the hallway, wearing sunglasses and a pink sun hat, trying her best to look like a regular cleaning staff member. This is brilliant, she whispered. No one suspects the cleaning crew. Marcus watched Emma roll by with the cart and spoke into his radio. Tony, now she's taken a room service cart. She stole it? Well, borrowed it, without permission. Keep watching, and someone tell housekeeping they're missing a cart. Emma followed Michael down to the ground floor, where he walked into the general manager's office. She parked the cart behind a giant decorative plant and pulled out her hole-punch newspaper again. Through the makeshift holes in the New York Times, Emma saw Michael step into Richard Morgan's office and close the door. The 2 men began a serious conversation, gesturing and looking at documents. A secret meeting with management, Emma whispered excitedly. This confirms everything. What Emma couldn't hear was the real conversation. Michael, I need to talk to you about Emma, said Richard. She's been acting strange. Strange how? Michael asked. Well, yesterday she asked me about security protocols for identifying corporate spies. And today, she showed up dressed like… Honestly, I don't even know how to describe it. Michael looked out the office window and saw Emma crouched behind a plant, wearing enormous sunglasses and holding a newspaper with holes in it. Oh, said Michael, trying not to laugh. Let me handle it. But in Emma's mind, the serious conversation between Michael and Richard only confirmed her growing suspicions. Corporate spy, she whispered dramatically. Probably planted here to steal business secrets. That's why he speaks 5 languages and gets mysterious phone calls. Emma was so deep into her theory that she didn't notice Steve had walked up behind her. Emma? Steve said gently. Emma screamed and jumped back, knocking over the room service cart and sending towels flying across the lobby. Steve, she shouted, still wearing the giant sunglasses. You scared me. Emma, are you okay? You're hiding behind plants. I'm not hiding, Emma said with wounded dignity, adjusting her pink hat. I'm investigating. Investigating what? Emma glanced around, noticing several guests watching the scene. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Michael isn't who he says he is, Steve. I have proof. What kind of proof? He speaks 5 languages, gets calls about corporate mergers, and I just saw him having a secret meeting with Mr. Morgan. Emma gestured dramatically with the hole punch newspaper. He's obviously a corporate spy. Steve looked at Emma, giant sunglasses, pink hat, wild theory, and made an executive decision. Emma, he said gently, how about taking a little break? Maybe get some coffee? I can't stop now, Steve. I'm about to expose an international spy ring. At that moment, Michael walked out of Richard's office and saw Emma in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by scattered towels, wearing a disguise that could be seen from outer space. Emma? He asked, clearly concerned. Are you okay? Emma turned to him, and even through the ridiculous sunglasses, Michael could see the suspicion shining in her eyes. I'm just fine, Michael, she said, putting extra emphasis on his name. Just observing hotel activity to improve guest service. Michael looked at the pink hat, the giant sunglasses, the hole punch newspaper, and the scattered towels. In disguise? He asked, trying not to laugh. It's not a disguise, Emma protested. It's an alternative uniform for behavioral observation. And that was the moment Michael Blackwood realized his little joke had created a monster, and Emma Rodriguez completely convinced she had uncovered an international conspiracy. And he had no idea how to fix it without telling the truth. After the whole spy disguise incident, Michael knew he had to do something drastic. Before Emma called the FBI to investigate what she thought was a case of corporate espionage. The solution he came up with was risky. A romantic dinner. Well, not exactly romantic, he muttered to himself as he made the arrangements. More like a thank you dinner that might seem romantic depending on how the moon hits the table. Michael had asked the staff to set up the hotel's private rooftop terrace, a space usually reserved for corporate events and celebrity weddings. But instead of going all out with baccarat crystal and imported orchids, he gave very specific instructions. Make it look like a lottery winner tried to plan something fancy. The result was a strange mix of genuine simplicity with unintentional touches of luxury that Michael just couldn't completely hide. Emma showed up at the terrace at 7 p.m., wearing the nicest dress she owned, a simple black one she had bought on clearance 2 years ago. When she saw the setup, her suspicions about Michael momentarily vanished, replaced by pure surprise. Michael, she whispered, looking around, this is beautiful. And it really was. String lights, which cost $300 each, not that Emma needed to know, gave the space a warm glow. A small table was set with plain white plates, Hermes but subtle, and there were candles, $400 handmade ones that smelled like Himalayan jasmine but looked completely ordinary. I wanted to thank you, Michael said, clearly nervous, for everything you've done to help me. The makeover, the etiquette lessons, the advice. Without you, I'd still be trying to eat pizza with my hands. Emma laughed, and the last of her doubts melted away. This didn't feel like a corporate spy. It felt like a genuinely grateful man. You didn't have to do all this, she said, touched by the gesture. I wanted to, Michael replied sincerely, and he meant it. He truly wanted to thank Emma, even if his reasons were more complicated than she knew. Dinner started off perfectly. Michael had ordered food from the hotel restaurant, but asked for simple dishes, grilled salmon, rice pilaf, and steamed vegetables. Nothing too fancy that might raise questions about his comfort with fine dining. So, Emma said as they ate, sorry about earlier today. I guess I got a little paranoid. Paranoid about what? Michael asked innocently. Well, Emma blushed. Promise you won't laugh? Promise. I kind of thought you might be a corporate spy. Michael nearly choked on his salmon. A corporate spy? I know. It sounds ridiculous now. But you speak all those languages, you get mysterious phone calls, and Emma waved her fork around. Everyone seems to know who you are, like you're famous or something. Maybe I just have one of those familiar faces, Michael offered. That must be it, Emma agreed, relieved to finally have a rational explanation. Like Tom Hanks, everyone swears they've met him. They kept talking and laughing, the mood getting more and more relaxed. Emma shared stories about her family, her dreams of becoming a writer, and her theories about why wealthy hotel guests always made the most impossible requests. "Last week," she said, waving a spoonful of rice, "a woman asked me to make it rain less because it was ruining her honeymoon. Like I control the weather." Michael laughed out loud. "And what did you say?" "I told her I'd check with the weather department." Emma made air quotes with her fingers. She was happy and tipped me $5. That's when disaster struck. Emma was making dramatic hand gestures to show how she had called the climate control department when her elbow hit the lemon butter sauce. The plate tipped, spilling yellow sauce all over the front of her black dress. "Oh no," Emma shouted, jumping up. "My dress, it's the only nice one I have." Michael immediately stood up and took off his shirt without thinking. "Here, use this to clean it up." Emma gratefully took the shirt, far too focused on the sauce disaster to notice what Michael had just handed her. If she had looked more closely, she might have noticed the small Ermenegildo Zegna tag, or the fact that the fabric felt like smooth Italian silk worth $800. "Thank you," she said, immediately starting to blot the sauce from her dress, using Michael's shirt. Michael watched in silent horror, trying not to show it, as Emma used his very expensive shirt like it was a kitchen towel. She scrubbed the stain vigorously, then wiped her hands on the shirt, and even used one sleeve to dab some drops that had landed on the table. "I think I got most of it out," she said, checking her dress. "Your shirt is super absorbent." Michael swallowed hard. The shirt now looked like a yellow map of Italy, with lemon sauce stains forming abstract patterns on what used to be pristine silk. "I'm glad it helped," he managed to say. "I'll wash it and bring it back tomorrow," Emma promised, still completely unaware of the value of the garment she was steadily destroying. "Butter sauce comes out pretty easily if you know the right trick." "Don't worry about it," Michael said quickly, picturing Emma tossing the shirt into a regular washing machine with bargain detergent. Emma, feeling like she'd ruined the evening, began apologizing over and over. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I messed up the whole night. You put together this beautiful dinner and She motioned to the stained dress and ruined shirt. "I'm a disaster when it comes to fancy situations." "Emma," Michael said firmly, "you didn't ruin anything. Accidents happen." "But your shirt, it's just a shirt. A shirt that cost more than Emma's monthly salary, but still, just a shirt." Emma looked at him with admiration. "You're very understanding. Most men would have been upset." "Why would I be upset? Over a little sauce?" "Because," Emma hesitated. "Well, that shirt must have cost at least $50. Even for someone who just won the lottery, $50 is still a lot." Michael nodded seriously. "That's true. $50 is a fair amount." Emma felt even worse. "Look, I'll buy you a new shirt. It might take me a few weeks. I'll have to save up, but—" "Emma, no," Michael interrupted. "It was an accident. And besides," he smiled, "it was worth it just to see you in action with your stain-fighting skills. You've got some very enthusiastic techniques." Emma laughed, finally relaxing. "I learned from my grandmother. She used to say, any stain can be removed if you're determined enough." "Your grandmother was a wise woman." They finished dinner with Emma still wearing the $800 Italian silk shirt tied around her waist like an apron, occasionally wiping her hands on it whenever she picked up something that might stain. Michael watched every move like someone witnessing a car crash in slow motion, unable to stop it, but oddly fascinated. When they finally said goodbye, Emma was still wearing the shirt. "That was the loveliest night," she said sincerely. "Thank you for showing me that lottery winners can be regular people." "Thank you for showing me that regular people can be extraordinary," Michael replied. After Emma left, Michael stood alone on the terrace, looking at the lemon sauce stains still on the table. He pulled out his phone and called his personal assistant. "James, I need you to order 12 more of those blue Zegna shirts I always wear. I have a feeling I'm going to need them." "12, sir? May I ask why?" Michael looked out at the city lights, thinking about Emma likely trying to clean lemon sauce out of Italian silk in her tiny laundry room. "Let's just say I met someone who has a very enthusiastic relationship with sauces." And for the first time in years, Michael Blackwood went to sleep smiling over a ruined shirt. The next morning, Emma woke up still smiling about the dinner. Michael's shirt was hanging in her bathroom, soaking in a mix of detergent and baking soda her grandmother swore could remove any stain known to mankind. "Poor guy," she murmured, making instant coffee. "I bet that shirt is one of the only fancy things he bought with his lottery money." While waiting for the coffee, Emma sat down at her old laptop, the one she'd bought used 3 years ago. She'd woken up with an idea for a short story. The lottery winner who didn't know he was rich. It would be based on Michael, of course, with a few changes to protect his privacy. But what's a good last name for the character? She wondered, tapping on the slow laptop. Something that sounds classy, but not too fancy. That's when a mischievous thought popped into her head. Why not Google Michael Blackwood, just to make sure there wasn't some famous Michael Blackwood out there who could make her story a problem? Just a quick search, she told herself as she opened her browser, just to avoid any copyright issues. Emma typed Michael Blackwood into the search bar and hit enter, expecting maybe a few LinkedIn pages and social media profiles of regular people with the same name. What showed up on the screen made her coffee fall off the table. Michael Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Hospitality Group, worth $8 billion. Emma blinked, then blinked again, then rubbed her eyes and looked at the screen once more. "That has to be someone else," she muttered, clicking on the first link. "There must be millions of Michael Blackwoods in the world." The Forbes page opened, showing a professional photo of a man in a sharp suit, perfectly styled hair, and a confident CEO smile. Emma stared at the photo for a long moment before her brain could process what she was seeing. It was Michael. Her Michael. The Michael she had taught to eat pizza with a fork and knife. "No!" Emma shouted, so loud the neighbors knocked on the wall. She frantically clicked link after link, each page confirming what she desperately wanted to deny. Michael Blackwood, 34 years old, heir to the Blackwood Hotel empire, one of the 10 richest people in America. Blackwood Hospitality Group owns 44 luxury hotels worldwide, including the iconic Grand Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. "Grand Plaza," Emma shouted at her laptop. "He owns the hotel where I work." She kept reading, each line hitting her like a punch in the stomach. Known for his private nature and quiet philanthropy. Graduated from Harvard Business School with honors. Speaks 6 languages fluently. 6 languages. Emma grabbed her hair. "I told him he learned from watching Netflix." Memories started hitting her like grenades of embarrassment, offering him $5 to buy a sandwich. Suggesting he stay at a hostel on 47th Street. Teaching him how to use utensils properly. Negotiating discounts for him at department stores, explaining how not to look poor in fancy places. Emma scrolled down and found a photo gallery. Michael at charity events, always perfectly dressed, surrounded by other well-known people. Michael opening a hospital he funded. Michael receiving awards for his philanthropy. And then she saw it. A photo of him at a fundraising event, wearing the exact same shirt she had turned into a cleaning rag the night before. $800, she read in the caption describing the billionaire's casual, elegant look. The Ermenegildo Zegna shirt worth $800. Emma looked toward her bathroom, where that $800 shirt was soaking in a mix of baking soda and detergent. "I ruined an $800 shirt," she screamed, falling off her chair. But the worst part was still ahead. Emma found a recent Vanity Fair article titled, "Why the Ultra-Rich Are Slumming. The New Trend of Living Like Regular People." Slumming? Emma read in growing horror. More and more billionaires are trying out living like regular people as a form of escapism. The realization hit Emma like a speeding garbage truck. Michael wasn't a lottery winner trying to adjust to the rich world. He was pretending to be poor for fun. He was slumming with me. Emma shouted into her empty apartment. I was his social experiment. She imagined Michael laughing with his billionaire friends about the clueless receptionist who tried to teach him manners. Probably making jokes about her money-saving tips, her lessons on how not to look poor, her awkward bargaining attempts. Emma stood up and started pacing her tiny apartment, waving her hands in the air. "Manual on how not to be poor," she yelled, remembering the list she had made. I wrote a manual on how not to be poor for a billionaire. She remembered how proud she felt when he used a fork and knife to eat pizza, how she had praised herself for teaching him, how touched she was by his gratitude for her advice. He must have thought it was hilarious, Emma muttered, her face burning with embarrassment. The foolish receptionist trying to teach America's richest man how to act refined. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. "Good morning. Hope the shirt wasn't too much trouble to clean. Can we meet for lunch?" Emma looked at the message. Then at the gala photos of Michael on her laptop. Then back at the message. "Meet for lunch," she read out loud. "So he can keep having fun at my expense." Emma typed back, "Sure." "Can't wait for our next etiquette lesson, Mr. Blackwood." She hit send before she could change her mind. 2 minutes later, her phone rang. It was Michael calling. Emma stared at the screen, imagining the look on his face when he realized the game was over. Part of her wanted to answer and yell at him. Another part wanted to pretend nothing had happened and go on living in ignorance. But the part that won was the one drowning in embarrassment and wanting to hide under the bed for the next 10 years. Emma let the phone ring. She closed the laptop and went to the bathroom to check if there was still any hope for the $800 shirt. There wasn't. "Well," she muttered, looking at the ruined shirt. "Now I know why all the waiters greeted him." And so, Emma Rodriguez did the only rational thing a person could do after realizing she'd spent weeks playing the fool for a billionaire. She crawled back into bed and pulled the covers over her head. Emma spent 2 hours under the blanket, planning her confrontation speech. She decided she wasn't just going to disappear and let Michael keep enjoying the joke. No, she was going to march right into that hotel and tell him exactly what she thought. Unfortunately, Emma forgot it was Tuesday morning, peak tourist time at the Grand Plaza. The lobby was packed with Japanese tourists taking photos, a group of senior travelers from Texas checking in, and at least 3 influencers filming affordable luxury in Manhattan. Emma pushed through the crowd like a general heading into battle, still wearing the clothes she'd slept in. Her hair looking like it had been styled by a tornado. Michael was at the front desk talking to Richard about the monthly reports when he saw Emma walking toward him like a guided missile. "Emma?" he called out, worried by the look on her face. "Are you? You made a fool out of me," Emma shouted across the crowded lobby. Silence fell instantly. Tourists stopped snapping photos. The Texas seniors stopped complaining about room prices. Even the influencers paused their videos. "Emma," Michael tried, lowering his voice, "can we talk in private?" "Talk in private?" Emma laughed hysterically. "Like you talked in private with your billionaire friends about the dumb receptionist who tried to teach you table manners?" Michael spotted at least 5 tourists pulling out their phones to record. "I never said anything like that to anyone," he said sincerely. "Of course not." Emma was now in full fury mode. "You just quietly laughed while I made a complete fool of myself." She started counting on her fingers, her voice rising with each item. "I taught you how to eat pizza with a knife and fork." A Japanese tourist whispered something to his wife, clearly asking if this was some kind of theater performance. "I made you a manual on how not to be poor." The Texas group was clearly enjoying the free show. "I taught you how to use coupons." 2 influencers began recording discreetly, sensing viral content. "I told you not to steal hotel amenities from your own hotel." Michael bit his lip so hard he nearly bled, trying not to laugh at the absurdity. "Emma," he tried again, "please let me explain." "Explain what?" Emma threw her arms up dramatically. "How funny it was when I offered a billionaire $5 to buy a sandwich," the crowd murmured. "Billionaire?" someone whispered. "Or how hilarious it was when I suggested you stay at a hostel," Emma went on, now holding the audience in the palm of her hand. "Or when I bargained like crazy to get you a discount on your $200 tie." Michael noticed Richard standing behind the counter, watching the scene like it was a live soap opera. "And the best part," Emma continued, voice dripping with sarcasm, "was when I explained why rich people are out of touch with reality to one of the richest men in America." A tourist started clapping, thinking it was part of the hotel's entertainment program. "Emma, please." Michael took a step closer. "No." Emma held up her hand like a traffic cop. "Don't come near me. I can't believe I fell for your act." "It wasn't an act. It was what? A social experiment? A charity project? A way to feel better about yourself by pretending to be normal?" Michael opened his mouth to answer, but Emma wasn't finished. "Oh, and thank you for ruining my favorite blouse with lemon sauce on an $800 shirt that I used as a cleaning rag." The crowd murmured again. $800 for a shirt was impressive, even for wealthy tourists. "Wait," Michael said, confused. "You ruined your shirt?" "Your shirt," Emma shouted. "I ruined your $800 shirt using it to wipe up sauce." Michael blinked. "Emma, you didn't ruin anything. I have dozens of those shirts." That was clearly the wrong thing to say. "Dozens," Emma almost exploded. "You have dozens of $800 shirts?" Richard discreetly signaled security to take position. Not to restrain Emma, but to manage the growing crowd. "And you know what else?" Emma went on, clearly running on pure emotional exhaustion. "I bet you even had my life investigated. You checked my financial background just to make sure I was poor enough for your slumming experiment." Michael froze. Emma saw the look on his face, and her world collapsed. "You did investigate me," she said quietly, all the anger turning into deep pain. "You really looked into my life." "Emma, it's standard security protocol." "Security protocol?" Emma shouted, now with tears in her eyes. "You violated my privacy just to have fun with me." The crowd murmured uncomfortably. This had stopped being entertainment. It was clearly something personal and painful. "I never meant to hurt you," Michael said honestly. "But you did," Emma said, her voice cracking. "You made me feel special, like I was helping someone. And the whole time I was just entertainment." Emma looked around, realizing for the first time that dozens of people were filming and taking pictures. "Perfect," she muttered. "Now I'm going to be a meme too." And then Emma Rodriguez did the only thing a person with dignity could do after finding out she'd been tricked by a billionaire in front of 50 tourists with cameras. She turned around and marched out. Tripped on the revolving door, gathered herself, and marched out again. The crowd erupted in murmurs and camera flashes. Michael stood in the lobby, surrounded by curious tourists, and the sound of Richard urgently whispering into his radio about damage control. And for the first time in his life, Michael Blackwood felt like the poorest man in the world. Emma returned to the hotel 3 hours later, wearing clean clothes and carrying a resignation letter she had written and rewritten 7 times. She had decided her only option was to leave with dignity, hand in her notice formally, and disappear from the face of the earth. The lobby was still busy, but thankfully there were no crowds recording epic confrontations. Emma marched straight to the front desk, where Richard was working. "Mr. Morgan," she announced dramatically, "I'm here to hand in my resignation." Richard looked at the letter, then at Emma, and let out a deep sigh. "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," Emma declared, her voice echoing through the lobby. "I can't keep working in a place where I was humiliated by—" She looked around and lowered her voice into a theatrical whisper. "Certain billionaires who think it's fun to fool innocent employees." A few guests glanced in their direction with curiosity. "I accept your resignation," Richard said gently, "but I wish you'd reconsider." "Never." Emma slapped her hand on the desk. "My dignity is worth more than any job." She turned to leave dramatically, her hair flying behind her like in a movie. Unfortunately, Emma had forgotten she was wearing new shoes with smooth soles. Her feet slipped on the polished marble floor of the lobby, and she stumbled spectacularly, her arms spinning like helicopter blades as she tried to regain balance. Michael, who had quietly entered the lobby hoping for a chance to speak to her, instinctively stepped forward to help. "Emma," he called, reaching out to catch her. "No," Emma shouted back, rejecting his help with such force that she lost her balance even more. "I don't need your help." She flailed her arms to push Michael away, completely lost her footing, and fell backward, straight into the decorative fountain in the center of the lobby. The splash was epic. Emma surfaced from the fountain like a very angry mermaid, soaking wet, with a water plant hanging from her hair and looking like she'd been attacked by an octopus. The entire lobby froze. Tourists, staff, guests, everyone was staring at Emma sitting in the fountain, dripping and radiating absolute indignation. "I'm fine," she shouted to no one in particular, trying to keep her dignity while pulling seaweed off her face. "Perfectly fine." Michael stepped toward the fountain. "Emma, let me help." "I said I'm fine." Emma tried to rise from the fountain with dignity, but her foot slipped again, and she landed back in the water with another splash. That was the moment when at least 6 people started recording. Emma finally managed to get out of the fountain with the dignity of a soaked cat, leaving a trail of water and pond plants across the marble lobby. "I'm going home now," she announced, trying to sound dignified despite dripping with chlorinated water. "I wish you all a have a dry day." She headed toward the exit, leaving wet footprints behind her when she realized she had lost a shoe in the fountain. Emma looked at the shoe floating among the lily pads, then at the crowd watching, then at Michael, who was clearly trying not to laugh. "You can keep the shoe," she said with as much dignity as she could gather. "Consider it a farewell gift." And so Emma Rodriguez walked out of the Grand Plaza Hotel, limping on one foot, leaving behind a trail of water, a floating shoe, and what would soon become the most viral video of the week. 3 hours later, Emma was home, trying to forget the most embarrassing day of her life, when her phone started buzzing non-stop with notifications. The first video she saw had 2 million views, and the title, "Receptionist Teaches Billionaire How to Be Poor. Epic Fountain Ending." The second had 3 million, "Hotel Karen Attacks Billionaire Owner and Falls in Fountain." The third, with 5 million views, "Plot Twist, She Tried to Teach Manners to the Hotel Owner." Emma scrolled through the comments. "I lost it when she yelled about discount coupons. His face trying not to laugh is everything. Better plot twist than Netflix. Someone give this woman a reality show." Emma threw the phone on the couch and shouted to the empty apartment, "I'm a meme." Her phone rang. It was her best friend Jessica. "Emma, you're on TikTok." "I know," Emma groaned. "You've got 5 million views. You're famous." "Famous for falling into a fountain after teaching a billionaire how to use coupons," Emma sighed. "Just like I always dreamed." "On the bright side," Jessica said cheerfully, "at least now you have an interesting story to tell." Emma looked at the phone, still buzzing with notifications. "Jessica? Yeah? Next time I say I'm going to confront someone dramatically, remind me to wear shoes with grip." And just like that, Emma Rodriguez became internet famous for all the wrong reasons, proving that sometimes life has a very particular sense of humor when it comes to dignity and decorative fountains. 2 weeks after the fountain incident, as Emma now called it in her head, she got a job at Books and Tears, an independent bookstore in Brooklyn that looked like it had been decorated by someone who believed chipped teacups and dying plants were the height of bohemian sophistication. The owner, Harold, a man in his 60s with a philosopher's beard and glasses he insisted were vintage, though they were clearly from the last century, hired her mainly because he wanted to boost foot traffic in the store. "You're famous," Harold said on her first day. "People will come here just to meet you." Emma thought Harold was being overly optimistic. She was wrong. On the first day, 12 people showed up. On the second, 23. On the third, Emma stopped counting when she realized there was a line outside on the sidewalk. "You're the fountain girl," a woman in her 20s exclaimed, holding up her phone like Emma was a celebrity. "Can I take a selfie? Did you really teach that billionaire how to use coupons?" asked a middle-aged man, clearly fascinated. "My daughter watched the video 50 times, said a proud mother. "She says you're a feminist icon for standing up to capitalist patriarchy." Emma looked at Harold, who was beaming as he watched sales go through the roof. "Maybe," Emma said slowly, "I should create a themed section." And so the Books for People Pretending to Be Poor section was born. A carefully curated collection of books on household budgeting, social etiquette, and memoirs by wealthy people who chose to live like the poor for the experience. The section included classics like How to Live on $1 a Day When You Have Billions, Survival Guide for Former Rich People, and Emma's personal favorite, Slumming for Dummies. "It's a brilliant social critique," Emma explained to a journalist from the Brooklyn paper who came to interview the new local literary sensation. "It explores the disconnect between economic privilege and genuine human experience." Emma had learned to talk like that after watching several documentaries on contemporary art. The section became so popular that Harold asked Emma to create themed workshops. "Workshop on how to spot disguised billionaires," Emma announced to an audience of 20 people at the bookstore. "Clues include speaking multiple languages, learned from watching movies, getting mysterious calls about mergers at McDonald's, and eating pizza with a knife and fork without complaining. The audience laughed and took notes as if they were in a college lecture. While Emma was building her new career as a disguised rich people detector, Michael Blackwood was going through the worst identity crisis of his adult life. Sitting in his office on the top floor of Blackwood Tower, he stared out at the city and felt completely empty. Emma had been the first person in years to treat him like a regular human being, and he had ruined everything. Even worse, her words kept echoing in his head. Rich people are out of touch with reality. Was she right? Was he really that disconnected? That's when Michael decided to make a bold change. He was going to follow every money-saving tip Emma had taught him. "Mr. Blackwood," said James, his assistant, entering the office, "the French restaurant confirmed your reservation for tonight and—" "Cancel it," Michael said. "I'll eat at home. Peanut butter sandwich." James blinked. "Sir? And James? Next time we go to the grocery store, remind me to bring coupons." "Coupons, sir?" "Discount coupons," Emma said, "saving money matters." Over the next few days, Michael's team watched with growing concern as their boss started practicing domestic savings strategies. He began bringing peanut butter sandwiches to work in brown paper bags. He started using coupons at the supermarket, causing confusion and delays when trying to use 50-cent coupons on $1,000 purchases. He began reusing paper napkins to avoid waste. He stopped drinking his $500 wine and switched to juice boxes. "Mr. Blackwood," said David Chen, his financial director, during a meeting, "the shareholders are concerned. There are rumors you're having financial trouble." "Why?" Michael asked, chewing a peanut butter sandwich. "Well, sir, yesterday you were seen using a $2 coupon at Whole Foods. The manager posted about it on Instagram." Michael sighed. "David, do you think I'm out of touch with reality?" "Sir? Normal people use coupons, David. Maybe I should learn to be more normal." David looked at his millionaire boss, eating a peanut butter sandwich and wearing a tie that clearly had been washed at home and came out a bit wrinkled, and came to the only logical conclusion. Michael Blackwood was having a breakdown over a receptionist. And the worst part was, Emma probably had no idea about the chaos she had caused in the life of Manhattan's richest man. Emma was organizing the books for people pretending to be poor section when the bookstore bell rang. She looked up, expecting another fan of the viral videos, and almost knocked over a pile of books on home budgeting. Michael Blackwood stood in the doorway. But this was a completely different Michael. Regular jeans, not designer, a plain t-shirt, no Italian label, and sneakers that looked like they'd been bought at a normal shoe store. "Emma," he said hesitantly, "can I talk to you?" Emma looked around. Thankfully, it was Monday morning and the bookstore was empty, except for Harold at the back, organizing poetry books and pretending not to listen. "Are you here to sue me?" Emma asked, crossing her arms. "Because technically I still owe you an $800 shirt." "Actually," Michael gave a sad smile, "I came to apologize and to tell you how I feel. To tell me how you feel." Michael took a deep breath. "Emma, I'm in love with you." Emma blinked. "You're what?" "In love. Completely. Hopelessly. Ridiculously in love." Michael stepped forward. "And before you say it's impossible because we haven't known each other that long, or because I lied, or because you fell into a fountain." "You saw the videos?" Emma interrupted, horrified. "All of them. 47 times." Michael smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "My favorite is the one where you yell about discount coupons. 5 million views and counting." Emma covered her face with her hands. "I'm a meme." "You're the most genuine person I've ever met," Michael said seriously. "Emma, you gave me $5 to buy food, not because you wanted something from me or thought I could help you, just because you thought I was hungry." "You looked skinny," Emma mumbled through her hands. "When was the last time someone cared if I was hungry?" Michael asked, more to himself than to her. "Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just me? I'd never met anyone who saw me as a regular person." Emma slowly lowered her hands from her face. "Michael, I know I lied. I know I hurt you. But those weeks with you were the happiest I've had in years. You even taught me how to eat pizza with a fork and knife." He laughed. You made me a guide on how not to be poor, which, by the way, is still completely wrong, Emma said, though a smile was starting to form on her lips. And you showed me that sometimes the most valuable thing we can give is genuine attention. Emma studied him for a moment. I don't hold a grudge, she said finally. To be honest, it was kind of fun teaching a billionaire how to be human. Michael laughed, relieved. So is there any chance you'll forgive me? I already did. Emma hesitated. But I have a confession. What is it? Emma walked over to the counter and pulled out a small box. I kept all the coupons you forgot during our outings. She opened the box, revealing a neatly organized collection of discount coupons. I figured rich people always forget to save money, so Michael looked at the collection. $2 discounts on pizza, 50 cents off ice cream, 10% off dry cleaning. You kept my coupons, he said, truly touched. I thought maybe you'd need them someday. Michael picked up one for sandwiches. Emma Rodriguez, would you be my girlfriend? Seriously? Emma smiled. A billionaire is asking me out in a small bookstore in Brooklyn? A man who learned how to use coupons is asking out the woman who taught him how to be human. Michael corrected her. Emma considered it. All right, but I have one condition. What's that? No expensive gifts for the first 6 months. Emma pointed at him firmly. I want to be sure you're interested in me, not in impressing the poor girl with money. Michael smiled. Peanut butter sandwiches and picnics in the park? Perfect. And Michael? Yes? You can keep using those coupons. Saving is saving, no matter how many billions you've got. Michael kissed Emma right there, in the middle of the books for people who pretend to be poor section, while Harold discreetly clapped from the back of the store. And for the first time in his life, Michael Blackwood felt truly rich. 3 months later, Emma Rodriguez stood in front of the mirror in her small Brooklyn apartment, adjusting the pearl necklace Jessica had lent her. She wore a simple but elegant white dress she had found on clearance, with an employee discount, thanks to the sales clerk who was a fan of her viral videos. I still can't believe I'm getting married at the place where I fell into a fountain, she murmured to Jessica, her maid of honor. And just 3 months after you told each other how you felt. Jessica laughed. You two really don't waste time. When you know, Emma said with a smile. Besides, Michael said the longer we waited, the more time I'd have to come up with new conspiracy theories about him. The wedding was a unique mix only Emma and Michael could pull off. A simple ceremony in Central Park, the same place they had their picnic, followed by a reception on the Grand Plaza rooftop. The decorations were intentionally modest, string lights, flowers from the local market, and a sign that read, "Coupon-free zone," an inside joke between the couple. The guests were an eclectic mix. Harold from the bookstore sitting next to David Chen, the CFO, Tony the security guard chatting with Richard Morgan, and at least 10 people who knew Emma from her viral videos and came to cheer for the most unlikely couple of the year. Dear friends, the officiant began, we are gathered here today to unite Emma and Michael, 2 people who proved that sometimes true love shows up disguised as hilarious misunderstandings. Emma laughed, remembering all the absurd moments that had brought them to this point. But before the vows, the officiant continued, the bride would like to make a special presentation. Emma pulled a small envelope from her sleeve. Michael, she said seriously, as a wedding gift, I have something very special for you. Michael looked at her, curious, as Emma opened the envelope. Honeymoon discount coupons, she announced proudly. 15% off the inn at Martha's Vineyard, free breakfast if we stay 3 nights. And, Emma, Michael interrupted, laughing so hard he nearly dropped the rings. Did you really bring coupons to our wedding? They're honeymoon coupons, Emma said, defending herself. And look at this one. It's a discount on bike rentals. The guests burst out laughing. Harold shouted, That's my girl, from the back. I accept all the coupons, Michael said solemnly, and I promise to use them proudly. When it was time for the vows, Michael held Emma's hands. Emma, he began, 3 months ago, you taught me something no business school ever could. The real value of things. You showed me that $5 given with love is worth more than 1,000 given out of obligation. You taught me that eating pizza with a fork and knife can be hilarious, and that someone can be a billionaire and still need to learn how to be human. Emma was crying. happy tears that completely ruined her cheap but waterproof makeup. "And Michael," she said, "you showed me that dreams can come true in the most unexpected ways. Who would have thought that teaching manners to a lottery winner would lead me to the love of my life? You taught me that sometimes the best things come disguised as bearded backpackers who don't know how to eat pizza properly." "And who love discount coupons," Michael added. "And who love my coupons." Emma laughed through her tears. After the ceremony, during the reception on the terrace, Richard Morgan gave a toast to Emma, who turned our hotel into a viral romantic comedy, and to Michael, who proved that even billionaires can learn that love is priceless, but might come with a discount if you know where to look. A few days later, Emma was in the temporary office she had set up in an empty room at the Grand Plaza. On the desk were business plans, financial spreadsheets, and a pile of coupons sorted by category. Emma's hospitality training already has 5 hotels interested in the program, she said to Michael, who was sitting in a simple chair eating a peanut butter sandwich. "And the concept?" he asked. "Simple. Train staff to treat every guest like a VIP, no matter what they look like." Emma showed him a presentation. "Lesson number 1. The guy with the torn backpack might be your future boss." Michael laughed. "And the sustainability program? It's working perfectly. We implemented your Emma's saving tips in 3 hotels. We saved $40,000 just by reusing towels and cutting down on food waste." Forbes wants to do a story about how a receptionist revolutionized hotel management with discount coupons, Michael said proudly. "I'll only accept if they use the photo of me falling into the fountain," Emma replied. "It's tradition now." That night, at home, now a bigger apartment, but still in Brooklyn because Emma insisted, they were planning their next adventure. "Emma," said Michael, "what if we opened our own hotel chain? Small, affordable, and where everyone is treated like royalty. Can I create a training manual called How Not to Judge Guests by Their Appearance?" Emma asked, excited. "You can. And can I launch a corporate household savings program based on your advice?" Emma threw herself into Michael's arms. "I knew I loved you from the moment you agreed to eat pizza with a fork and knife. And I knew I loved you from the moment you offered me $5 to buy a sandwich," Michael replied, kissing his wife. What did you think of Michael and Emma's story? Let us know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our stories. And check out more emotional stories by clicking right here on the final screen.